The non-human pharaohs of ancient Egypt. Who were these giants? The lost legacy of these non-humans. How did humans move blocks of tons of weight when building the pyramids? That and other questions have led us to question the existence of giants in ancient Egypt. Not only in ancient Egypt, we had them in ancient Crete in the Minoans. Now, how did humans move blocks of tons of weight when building the pyramids? That other questions lead us to question the existence of giants there. But is there really any conclusive evidence to prove these extraordinary claims? History has repeatedly led us to think that rulers of ancient Kemet, the ancient name for Egypt, which means black land, were not ordinary humans. Some say they had elongated skulls, others describe them as quasi-spiritual beings, and others as giants of ancient Egypt. And to support this theory is one of the legends that tells us the pyramids of Giza were built by the hands of a race of giants. They were what we, according to the Emerald Tablets written by Thoth the Atlantean, the Atlanteans were giants. And we even have a princess that escaped from Atlantis and went to Algeria. And the Tuareg legend says that she was beautiful, tall, blonde-haired, blue eyes, very tender, very intelligent, and that the Atlanteans gave them knowledge and science and the knowledge of pharmacology, planting, agriculture, and many other things. Now, this theory was shared by a lecture called Atlantis and the Ancient Gods by the occultist Manly P. Hall. Quote, we are told that in the year 820 AD, way back in the days of the glory of Baghdad, the great Sultan, the follower and descendant of the great Al-Rashid of Arabian Nights, the Sultan Al-Rashid Al-Ma'mun, decided to open the Great Pyramid. He had been told that it had been built by giants who were called the Shaddai, superhuman beings, and that within that pyramid and those pyramids, they had stored a great treasure beyond the knowledge of man, end quote. Although it's true that in the year 832 AD, Al-Ma'mun traveled to Egypt and was the first to explore the Great Pyramid in a time where it was still covered in white limestone. However, the Shaddai is a mystery that continues to this present day. According to some, it could be referring to another name of Shemshu Hor, or the Followers of Horus, while others say it could refer to Shaddai bin Ad, the king of Ad, who was believed to be the king of the lost Arabian city of Iram of the Pillars, an account of which is mentioned in Surah 89 of the Quran. He is sometimes referred to as a giant. The monumental constructions in Egypt and their relationship with these giants. The Akbar al-Zaman, also known as the Book of Wonders, written around 900 to 1100 AD, is an Arabic compilation of ancient traditions in Egypt and the pre-Diluvian world, before the Great Flood. It claims that the people of Ad were giants, so Shaddad could be one of them. It said that he, quote, built the monuments of Dashur with the stones that had been carved in the time of his father. Before that, the giant Harjit had begun its construction. At a later date, Quaftarim, another giant, quote, placed secrets in the pyramids of Dashur and other pyramids to imitate what had been done of old. He founded the city of Dendera, end quote. Dashur consists of the Red Pyramid and Bent Pyramid, constructed during the reign of Pharaoh Sneferu, 2600 to 2589 BC. On the other hand, Dendera consists of highly decorated pillars dedicated to the goddess Hathor. The text also mentions that the city of Memphis was built by a group of giants who lived after the Great Flood and served King Misraim, who was also known as a giant. Even later still, it describes the work of more of these colossi giants. Quote, Adim was a giant with insurmountable strength and the greatest of men. He ordered the quarrying of rocks and their transportation to build pyramids, as has been done in former times, end quote. So, what do we make of all these stories? It does seem that Manly P. Hall was aware of this text and attempted to summarize it in his lecture. It's the opinion of the author that all ancient lore, quote unquote, is worth acknowledging, as many of these traditions were relied on it to carry knowledge and wisdom through the generations. Now, the followers of Horus, who may have created the main mound of Giza long before the pharaohs, are believed to have been giants. This is believed because at the end of the 4th millennium BC, that's about 6,000 years ago, those called disciples of Horus, were a powerful aristocracy that ruled Egypt. Quote, towards the end of the 4th millennium BC, the people known as the disciples of Horus appeared as a highly dominant aristocracy that governed entire Egypt. The theory of the existence of this race is supported by the discovery in the pre-dynastic tombs in the northern part of Higher Egypt of the anatomical remains of individuals with bigger skulls and builds than the native population, with so much difference to exclude any hypothetical common racial strain, end quote. And let's remember that the DNA analysis that we recently had of one of the Egyptian pharaohs, I think it was Akhenaten, showed that his DNA was much more intense than human DNA, and even the skull and bones were much more robust and had a lot of fortitude. They were very strong bones compared to human bones. So obviously the DNA and the bone structure were totally different, meaning that they were not completely human. They were more, I guess you would say, superhuman. They were stronger and with more intense DNA. What could all that DNA information have had in it? Now, the theory here about its existence is supported by the discovery of pre-dynastic tombs north of Upper Egypt. From the remains, archaeologists found skulls and constructions much larger than the rest stand out. The difference is such that any kind of common racial strain is ruled out. In fact, Professor Walter B. Emery, an Egyptologist who explored Saqqara in the 1930s, discovered the pre-dynastic remains. Emery discovered that the abnormally large remains belonged to people with blonde hair and much more robust complexion. Let's remember that the Atlanteans were tall giants with blonde hair. Now, he said that the strain was not native to Egypt, but that it was very important in Egypt's government. He discovered that this group only mixed with other equally important aristocracies and were believed to be part of the followers of Horus. And a 2.5 meter tall king, he was about 9-10 feet tall. Khashoggi was the last ruler of the Second Dynasty of Egypt, with its epicenter near Abydos. Remember Abydos, the temple of Seti, had the hieroglyphs with the airplanes, helicopters, submarines, and tanks. Now, he was present in the construction of Hierakonpolis, the pre-dynastic capital. He was buried in the necropolis of el-Kab. His limestone tomb was investigated in 2001, surprising experts by the quality of the construction compared to the step pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara, which was dated to the beginning of the Third Dynasty. Khashoggi's remains were never found, so it's believed that it was looted long before that. Flinders Petrie, who was the first to excavate the site, found evidence from the 3rd century BC that the pharaoh almost reached 2.5 meters in height. 3rd century BC, this is about the time of Alexander the Great. Remember, Alexander found a lot of Nephilim when he went towards the east of India and China. Those he didn't do away with, he threw in pits, covered the openings with various metals, and built pyramids above them to lock them into the gates. Now, representation of giants in Saqqara, we have a lot of hieroglyphs showing this. The Third Dynasty was responsible for the construction of the step pyramid of Saqqara, built with other temples in the complex. Djoser, who was in charge of building Khashoggi, who is suspected of being his son, ruled Saqqara during the construction of that pyramid. Within this complex, it was possible to photograph a painting of a giant that clearly seemed to have an elongated skull. However, this could be a representation of skeletons that were excavated in the 1930s of individuals with large skulls and complexions. In 1895 and 96, the world's newspapers published a strange story about a photograph of the Temple of Isis. The first time the article appeared was in the Arizona Silver Belt, November 16, 1895, under the headline, Prehistoric Egyptian Giants. And this is what the article read. In 1881, when Professor Timmerman was engaged in exploring the ruins of an ancient temple of Isis in the banks of the Nile, 16 miles below Najar Jafard, he opened a row of tombs in which some prehistoric race of giants had been buried. The smallest skeleton out of some 60 odd, which were examined during the time Timmerman was excavating at Najar Jafard, measured 7 feet 8 inches in length, and the largest 11 feet 1 inch. Memorial tablets were discovered in great numbers, but there was no record that even hinted that they were in the memory of men of extraordinary size. It's believed that the tombs date back to the year 1043 BC. And according to the German newspaper Bild, Gregor Spory, a millionaire who owns a Swiss nightclub, took several photos of a mummified giant finger of the late 1980s, and the owner was a retired grave robber who lived in Bir Hooker near Sadat City, about 100 kilometers from Cairo. The finger was 35 centimeters long, so it belonged to someone who easily exceeded 4 meters in height. That's over 15 feet. However, this finding was barely made public in 2012, 24 years later, and since then, it has not been made official. According to Spory, the finger was found 150 years ago and had been in the family of the owner, who took the trouble to x-ray the finger to confirm its authenticity. And there's more here about that Egyptian giant mummified finger. Now, according to some researchers, gigantic coffins are proof of giants in Egypt, though it simply could be the case that they made them bigger than required to impress others or make it clear to the gods in the afterlife that they were of royal stock. On the other hand, there are a few accounts of gigantism in the historical record. Egypt has 2. Many unusually large skeletons and mummies could be just another example of gigantism, but many have thrown questions as being without signs of any pituitary irregularity. Anyway, with these discoveries presented here, it simply builds a case for the existence of giants in prehistoric Egypt and worldwide, and the more we explore the records of each country, the more examples we find. Yes, some have nothing to do with the mysterious lost part of our history, but some have. It may even shed light on how such large stones were quarried and lifted into place, as only giants, very advanced technology, or ingenious architects could have achieved such a gargantuan task in the distant past. This was first published in Código Cult in Spanish. It's here originally published by Ancient Mysteries, and it's on Collective Spark. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.